Hey, so Brian, let's just go ahead and jump in here. We were just you called me because you said you wanted to play WoW Classic.
Yeah, and
And
I was just very curious about it, and I'm like, all right, who do I know who's the WoW expert? And it's
so
you.
you created a class, you created your first characters
Mm.
just in case, so we can try to log in today. We'll see if either of us even get in. And the question was like, do you think you do, but you don't? Like,
hmm
is there a reason not to play? Is there a reason to play? And I was just trying to kind of warn you about the experience you're going to have because it's drastically different than the modern MMO.
hmm
I mean, they really did true to form recreate WoW vanilla. It's going to be you could play for 8 hours today and be. I mean, if you've never played before, it's possible you don't make it to level 10.
So is that bad though? Because one of the things that we hear and see a lot within MMO communities, and that's where this is it's I feel like I am a scientist and this is this beautiful lab that is just unfolding in real time. Because back to the quote you said, you think you do but you don't. That's what Blizzard told their fan base, like I think at BlizzCon. And now here we are years later, WoW Classic is here. The server times people are projected that it's going to be nuts. We're seeing like Asmongold being like one of the highest viewed Twitch streamers right now. WoW Classic has a lot of momentum. The question is that it's not about day one. It's going to be about like, day 90, day 180,
Months,
day 360.
months.
And what if it answers with the fact of streaming being involved? Because the concern is, and what people keep always saying, and what we hear a lot of the times is that you don't have time to play, you don't have time to invest in these communities, and so they've built in these tools which ultimately kind of break down that kind of community. I'm not saying that it's a bad idea that's come about, but I'm saying is that we could be witnessing a almost like probably a very low odd, but a branching path, right? Where what if this is successful? What if this is so powerful that after Burning Crusade and with Lich King, they'd start to change it up so that it retains that classic feel and then goes in a whole different timeline direction. Is that power like that's what I think a lot of people are kind of maybe hoping for, that at least they think they want that classic experience.
It's not just streaming though.
Right.
So like back in the day, you had limited access to forums.
Mm-hmm.
Forums like Elitist Jerks held a huge amount of community weight. You had a couple of websites. Some of them are still around, like Wowhead, but not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
There were, um, and beyond that, your community was limited to like what you could. I think it was like Ventrilo was what we used for voice. So it's been a long time, and now we not only have streaming, but we have communities like Discord. We have so even for non-streamers, there's this incredible communal experience that can happen now. People's ability to post to forums, to be in touch all the time now. All these different forums and threads get pushed right to our phones, and so you have this level of access that you really didn't back then. If somebody went home from college for a weekend to see their parents, they couldn't raid because their parents didn't have good enough internet, and like so they'd just be gone and they would be unaccessible, unreachable. And so there's something interesting now. I wonder if it'll drive it to a higher or lower performance level, because on one hand it makes things more accessible, on the other hand, um, somebody who really isn't available, maybe somebody who drives a truck for a living or something like that, and they're just, I'm driving that day, like I can't play. It's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. We can find somebody who can, because when 40 mans lost their main tank, it could crush a guild. I mean, you spent so much time investing in this one person. You could see a whole guild brought to its knees for losing a main tank or off tank. Losing your head healer was a big deal. Like there's some dynamics socially to these games that are going to be really intriguing.
Mm-hmm. So, but aren't those tools? Isn't the technology? I mean, when we're talking about cloud gaming, when we're talking about the concept of even Stadia, just for as an example of something that's going to be coming out later this year at Project X Cloud, PlayStation Now. I mean, we've been playing our games, and I've installed WoW Classic on our Shadow PC, which is essentially a gaming PC in the cloud. So I'm that truck driver. I'm that individual. I don't even need to have a high powered device anymore. I could technically play the games from anywhere, as long as I've got, in this case for WoW Classic, I'm assuming mouse and keyboard. People keep telling me that there's a way to play WoW with a controller, and I know Blizzard devs, there are those who do it, but when it comes down to Final Fantasy, it's like it's kind of like you drive like this incredible car, and then it's somebody's like, yeah, you know, like I have this old beat up truck, you know, it drives just as good, and then you get in and you're like, yeah, you know, I'm glad you got this truck. It's, you know, you're doing good, buddy. But like I was just over in this having this premiere experience with the controller, and that's where it's always been my hang up. That's why it's going to be interesting for me, like stepping in with you, because I thought like as I was driving, I was like, well, let me go play with Chris, because that's why we started a channel in the first place. Is like we can play and talk about games. But then I had 1,000 questions, and so we kind of were like, all right, what class should I play? What should I do? And then ultimately, as a Final Fantasy XI classic fan, as somebody who really like has fond memories of those experiences, I sit here and go, what if this changes the landscape? What if this essentially where MMOs became this really big thing, and now they're kind of what we've seen with articles and just the numbers, they're shrinking, and that's not a bad thing. They're just getting into that core passionate fan base, but that fan base is also people with families, people with jobs, people who like, okay, like I can play, you know, this game a couple of days a week, and that's all I can commit to it. So from a real progression, a real thing like that, it becomes a challenge, right? So what if this resets that? What if this shows that no, people are interested in those things that you have to work towards, that you have to build the community, not just within the game, but using new tools like streaming, like, you know, especially with streaming, like, hey guys, I'm stuck on this. Here, let me fire up my live stream. And then you could literally tell me and direct me because you can see my screen. You can see what I'm doing. You know, like like these could be additive. Again, I think it's a long shot, but it's something that there's some part of me that is rooting or hoping for it. And I don't know if that's the nostalgia. I don't know, because I'm not nostalgic for WoW, but at the same time, like I'm rooting for it, because if it takes off and if people are like, this is the what it means to be an MMO, not raid finder, not duty finder, not, you know, matching finder, like no, like it's about a community, and even if it's smaller than, you know, mass market stuff, if there's a market for it and if it's making money, like could that change how these games are designed and played and consumed? And that's the experiment. Anyway, you're shaking your head. I want to know your thoughts.
No, it's definitely an intriguing time because their monetization model doesn't have any room for it. You don't have the typical, like when you go look at streamers, I've been told from people who work at Twitch that the size of a person's stream does not always correlate with the amount they make.
Right.
There are smaller streams who have loyal fan bases. Everybody in that chat's a subscriber, sometimes of a higher tier. People donate, people cheer, and so they make more money than maybe somebody larger that just like maybe plays day one of games and people come in just to say hello. They've got thousands of people watching, but nobody's cheering, nobody's subscribing, and they're just not making as much. But this being a subscription-based game, numbers is the math. Like it just straight up is a multiply of, you know, this many players times this amount per month is how much we make. The question is, are they going to make enough money to justify doing this again? Because they were able to do it with a relatively small team, because it's all, the content's already been decided. There was no design choices necessarily. It was a lot of more of like, okay, how can we do this true to form? It was not whole new ideas out of our head. The boss fights were all predetermined. The order of the bosses all predetermined. The patch cycles relatively predetermined. So they were able to do it on a narrower team. The graphics art team was told, hey, here's what you're creating, not invent something new out of your head. So we'll see. I'm excited for it. I don't know if it ends up moving into the Burning Crusade. This parallel timeline thing makes me nervous. I want people to go back and mess with the timeline of 1.0.
Me for like 14?
Yeah.
No, I say don't even worry about 14 1.0. Anything I refer to classic is all related to Final Fantasy 11, because Final Fantasy 11 is more comparable to WoW Classic, because that's the same kind of era and time. 14 1.0 was a series of bad leadership, bad decisions that and the technology, like it's you know, the lore itself. Would I like people to be able to experience that? Sure. It got remade and rebuilt in a new engine because it had to happen, right? Where now, would I like to see? I think when you like, again, I know people look at 14 1.0 because 14 is that powerhouse, right? but it would be 11 would be what I would say would be that comparison. Now with 11, they would have to do something special because they would have to remove play online. Like you wouldn't get that. Like here's how it was back in 2003 or whatever. You would have to say here's what it is. And personally, my hope for 11 would be we've built it in Unreal. Like we've updated the graphics. We've taken all the play online because your friend just being able to friend somebody was not really a function within the game and the UI. We've updated the UI so it can actually support 4K monitors. We've updated the UI. Like I don't think it's weird because I would say maybe I'm wrong, but people want how the game played. They don't want necessarily how the game had the UI and how you interacted with the game.
Both with WoW Classic. There
Right.
are going to be people in Orgrimmar saying, looking for one healer for this dungeon.
Right.
You get that healer, you guys are going to go off.
Physically run to it.
Go to that dungeon and you're going to zone in, and if that healer suddenly cannot clear the content, you are going to try to work with that healer, because the idea of zoning out and flying all the way back so that you can sit in Orgrimmar to ask for a healer for a partial run is a nightmare.
Yeah.
So you end up with reputations. You end up saying that was a really pleasant run. Let me add that person to my friends list, because then next time they're online, I can skip this whole mess and I can just pull in that healer again. It's a very reputation based game. So, being nice, being polite, those are important things. And then it's a question of what do we do about the big grinds? Are you familiar with the Encourage event and what happened?
I'm not familiar with grind. Like, wow.
So we've got the Encourage raid that we'll be getting down the line. And to unlock Encourage, you had to basically do a turn-in. Think Dome and Enclave from Final Fantasy XIV, except that keeping track of everything. And so instead of you just turning in anything for currency, they were saying, hey, I need this much of this type of cloth. I need this much of these type of bandages. And you were contributing to the Encourage war effort. And for that, you're getting reputation grinds. So think about like your beast tribes. So you're getting reputation benefits, but not everybody wanted reputation tokens. So what people would do is they would sell those materials on the market board, and then people who just wanted to buy reputations and had gold could buy the materials. And so it shot the economy into this crazy state. But the problem is now we know about it. And now we know what the materials required were, and we know that you can't unlock the dungeon until you get it. And so the question is, will people stockpile those materials? And as a design choice, if the intent was to throw the economy into this like crazy frenzy, if people stockpile the materials and then just unlock it day one, does it deliver on the intent? And so they've kind of implied that they're going to just follow everything to the letter, not the intent. But if they end up sticking to intent, they would change the materials required somehow, because people stockpiling is just going to break that event, and it's going to break the market leading up until then, because things like rune cloth are not going to be available because everybody's going to be holding on to it for
when you could still make money to sell it then at that point. The economy will respond however it needs to. Now, when does that go live? When is the Encourage event? Like, when does that drop?
I don't know the exact patch cycle, to be honest. Since I'm not going to be raiding, really, I'll probably jump into a few raids, but I'm not going to be trying to get a permanent slot in a 40-man. I really haven't worried too much about the raid unlock. It's one of the reasons that drove me to pick Hunter, is I picked a class that was really soloable and out in the world content, because I want to go do my own rep grinds and things like that. I've got plenty of raiding to enjoy in 14, and if I want more raiding, WoW BFA is not terrible raiding. The issue with WoW BFA is the loot system. So I really wasn't that worried about reliving my raiding experience. If you want to raid, go nuts. I remember how long.
We'll see if I'm even at all happy with playing with the keyboard and mouse.
40 people is a lot to coordinate, so it just didn't sound like the experience I wanted to relive. I did choose a PvP server for us instead of PvE, and I did want to relive that. And just be aware that means that Alliance level 60 can just run in and just kill you and camp your body until the end of time, because they can. I felt it added a lot of interest. There are certain zones like Stranglethorn Vale and that are known for being a place to go tear up low levels. Stranglethorn Vale works that way because you're in it as a low level for a particularly long time. So it tends to be a lot of low levels are available for killing, because you're in there for this huge swath of time, and they're just big enough that you can still tear them up as a level 60. We'll see.
We'll
We'll
see.
see.
We'll
I
see.
look forward to all the fun things that people do. There was a time when people tried doing like it was like a million level ones taking on Hogger, and it was this boss, so it'd be like a million level ones just running and trying to take on Ixion. Like they just ran to take this on. So there's all sorts of fun things. Yeah, it should be good.
All right. Well, guys, we'll be keeping you updated on our progress when it comes to WoW Classic and my experience from as a mouse and keyboard player. Like, that's not my bread and butter. So check us out. We'll be live, hopefully, with the game this today and sometime throughout this week. And with that, guys, for Works a Game, my name's Brian.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks so much for watching this video. We hope you have a fantastic time. And hopefully, if you're playing WoW Classic, you have a premier and enjoyable experience. And let us know what you're thinking in the comments below. But we'll talk to you next time. Take care.